What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. Today is season 3, episode 12, and I am super pumped. I've been a huge fan of this dude, watching him on the old YouTube, no, I guess the YouTubes, but the Instagrams world. Sam Fribush, dude, thanks so much for making some time today. I know you have a gig later, so thanks for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So my first question to you, and we're gonna get into a lot of nerdy keys is like my second instrument. Like guitar is my first thing, but keys are my second thing. So I have a lot of nerdy stuff I want to get into with about that. But I have a really, really specific moment in my life when like music like jumped into my heart and was like, all right, buddy, this is what you're gonna do for the rest of your life. Do you have any like specific moment like that, or has it always been part of your world?
It's always been part of my world. Both of my parents are musicians, so I grew up in a musical household, and yeah, it's just been kind of in my DNA since before I could remember. I think I got my first drum set when I was 5 years old, so I don't really remember. Most of my childhood memories have something to do with music, basically.
Okay.
I mean, my mom tells this story about how when I was like a toddler, I said something like, I think the reason that this is kind of cheesy, but I said something like, the reason that I'm here or whatever is because you guys are musicians and I'm like music and want to be a musician. So, I mean, there's pictures of me like sitting on the floor, just staring at a live band at weddings and stuff like before I could even walk. Yeah.
What do your parents play?
My dad is a multi-instrumentalist who plays clarinet, among other things, like lap steel. And my mom is primarily a visual artist now, but she did play banjo and sing vocals.
That's crazy. And we were
Yeah.
talking before this because you said so your dad's from Baltimore. So did you actually grow up here for a little bit?
No, I grew up. I was born and raised in Greensboro, North Carolina. I never lived in
Okay.
Baltimore, but it was my home away from home, for sure.
Okay. Okay, cool. Where was your dad from around Baltimore?
Pikesville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm around the other side of the Beltway. So it's
Yeah.
not far though. Yeah. That's
Well,
so funny, man.
yeah, it's crazy. I have family in Howard County and Reisterstown. Everybody's kind of spread out now, but go Ravens, go Orioles.
Yeah, man. Well, Orioles. Oh my God, dude. We don't want to get into that. That's been rough. That has been rough watching that. Ugh, ugly ball, ugly ball. So okay, so you come from a musical family. You said drum set. So that was the first thing you sat down on was the kit?
Yeah, drum set, and then interestingly enough, I transitioned to the steel pan. There was a teacher.
Really?
Yeah, there was a teacher here in North Carolina named Tracy Thornton, and he worked with the youth. He had worked with young guys and teaching them how to play steel drum. His wife was Trinidadian, and he really knew the tradition of the instrument. So I took lessons from him for years, from like the age of 8 to maybe 13, and I led my own steel pan trio with drums and bass. I played like lead, tenor pan is what they call it, and we would do rock covers and calypso covers, all kinds of stuff. So that was actually my first gigging instrument, which is really fun.
That's awesome. So was that like your first kind of entree into like melody and like understanding melodic and like
Yeah, and improvise. It was
man.
a lot. It would be like we'd play the head and then I would solo on the pan, and it's a chromatic instrument. So it was kind of like I had to I remember figuring out a lot of my lines and stuff on the keyboard and then transferring it over to the pan.
Dude, that's crazy. I can't even imagine that. Like, how old were you when you were doing that?
I was young. I was like probably 10, 11.
Oh my God, dude. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's like a heady instrument, and I'm sure in terms of like understanding technique and whatnot for a 10-year-old to be doing.
Well, I guess, I mean, in some ways it's kind of like, yeah, there was some, but my teacher was so great, he would make me just practice my scales and stuff like that. And then, and you just really, I don't know, there's elements of it that are kind of easy, and I don't want to say but it's like you don't have to get down into the nitty gritty of like versus like playing the piano, which has so much nuance in your attack. The pan, you kind of, if you can develop a nice roll, then you got a good sound on the pan.
Man, I never in a million freaking years would have guessed that's where you started, dude. That's so cool. I love that story. So when did like the keys enter then? Like, was it after the pan?
It was around the same time I started, playing piano and checking out harmony and getting into theory and stuff. And then I went to a performing arts high school where I had a really great piano professor there, and we were on block schedule. So I had like an hour and a half a day in the piano studio. And that's where I really developed a lot of piano technique, I would say. Yeah.
Man. And what were you like into musically at that time? Like, what were you listening to?
Pretty early on, I became obsessed with New Orleans music. I had some family who lived down there, and in 2006, I was 11 years old, and I went to New Orleans the year after Katrina for Jazz Fest, and I was just became totally obsessed with it, with all the traditions down there, from the Mardi Gras Indians to the Neville Brothers. Behind me, that's James Booker.
Nice.
Oh, sorry, that's Professor Longhair, James Booker, the Meters, Art Neville, Dr. John, Alan Toussaint. So that was really kind of my obsession, I would say, but at the same time, when I was in high school, I was listening to like a lot of Robert Glasper and D'Angelo and cats like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's funny, man. I didn't really know much about John Cleary until last year.
Yeah.
And I felt like such a dork. I was like, why have I not been listening to this music for the past decade? Because some of that stuff is so freaking hip, man. Like,
yeah,
I feel like there's kind of like this connection, unspoken connection between Baltimore and New Orleans in a way. There's like this, I don't know what it is about it. Like, I grew up here, but like I have like this New Orleans kind of funk thing that it just is in me, has been in me since I was a kid, like learning guitar. Like I kind of wanted to go towards playing funkier, just like, even whether it's like, the kind of lettuce type of thing, or if it's just like old school sly funk, like I kind of was always drawn to that. So I feel like there's kind of like this connection. I don't know what it is, but I've never even been to New Orleans, but I would love to go to New Orleans and just like experience music for a week straight.
Oh yeah, man, you gotta go. It's Mecca, man. It's a life-changing experience. But I do kind of know what you mean. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint it myself. But maybe it's a harbor city. It's a very blue collar city. There's certainly a significant amount of soul in Baltimore. And that's cool. I know what you mean.
It's weird because I started the reason I am playing guitar is because I grew up during the grunge movement. So like my foray into playing guitar was 100% Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. But like as I like started transitioning into understanding that there's this whole other side of the world with blues, then that takes you into like understanding like, oh, what's Motown? What's Stax? Like all this stuff that kind of like, it was like a rabbit hole meets like a snowball rolling downhill that just like put me into the world of like funk and jazz and soul. So it was a weird transition for me, but it sounds like early on you were already into that stuff, man. If you're listening to D'Angelo.
Yeah, I had my stages of, being into Weezer and rock and roll and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, I think a large part of that had to do with just growing up in my house. My dad was always just playing old records. My mom, they're just both very kind of folk influence, Southern hippies, for a lack of a better term. And so
love it.
That was the music. And I was just always drawn to it. I mean,
Yeah. That
I
makes
wanted
sense.
I wanted to play funk like you said, man.
Yeah. What do you think drew you in about it? Was it the groove? Like, what was the thing?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. It was just groove and wanting to be a bad motherfucker, you know.
Yeah. Well, my friend, you have reached that status.
Oh man,
That's
thank
I
you.
just it's crazy to watch players like you and my buddy Eric Finland. You know Eric Finland?
I do, yeah. Fuck yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So we both were at Berkeley at the same time.
yeah.
Um, but like watching both of you guys play it seems, I know it's not effortless because you put a lot of hours in making your left hand walk the way it can and everything. But like the fact that you guys can split your brains in that way is just so magical to me because
Mm,
I can't. There's, as far as piano players, like one of my favorite piano players is Bruce Hornsby, and he has that thing too.
yeah,
He can split it. But Hiromi, that first Hiromi record, are you
yeah.
hip to that? Oh my god, dude, that woman, the way that she can split her brain.
She's on
Boom.
another level, man. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pianist. I mean, a lot of piano players can do it too, but there's something unique about the Hammond and the way that it functions and the way that the left hand is so much subbier. I mean, it's a total different tonality thing. So, I mean, there's piano players, especially like people like Hiromi and classical musicians who would be able to cut me up all day in terms of their polyrhythms and stuff that's happening in both hands.
Yeah. Well,
But there's something different about playing a groove in your left hand and making that feel really good and doing the other shit in your right hand. And they're kind of two different things, maybe.
yeah. But the fact that like you can swing as hard as you do with your left hand, like watching you play is I could listen to B3 all freaking day, dude. Like I'm a guitar player, but I could listen to gospel music all day. Not even, you don't even need a guitar in the song. I would be happy to listen to that stuff. But the way that you guys, you in particular, how hard you swing and be able to blow over top of that stuff is just like maybe you can demystify it a little bit. I know it's years and years and years of work, but like, as far as, well, let's not go there yet because I wanted to get there via piano.
Uh-huh.
So piano in high school, you have your blocks off where you can work and shed your butt off, right?
Yeah.
So were you experimenting with playing like electric piano and like organ at the time, or was it just like your total focus was like
Yeah.
acoustic piano?
Oh no, totally. I played in a blues band with a bunch of older cats here in town, and that was like playing organ and Rhodes and stuff like that. And we went to Memphis we were a blues band, we went to the international blues competition, but we played some funk stuff. I mean, I cut a lot of my chops with those guys because I got a lot of experience just kind of grinding it out in the bar. We had weekly gigs and shit like that. But my time in high school really helped me probably to get into the New England Conservatory because I mean I was playing the blues and I was playing funk and shit, but I was like, man, I really want to learn how to play jazz and get better at playing jazz. And I wanted to be able to play like Bud Powell and bebop and stuff. So I knew I wanted to go to school for music for college. And so I went to the conservatory and I was just got my ass handed to me basically. I just was like, I mean, there was kids coming in my grade who were like in Grammy band and just could, were incredible. And a lot of those people became really great friends of mine. And I just put my head down and pushed through and worked really, really hard to try to keep up. And I ended up getting really into stride piano. Yeah. So I had some really influential teachers, Jason Moran and Ethan Iverson, Anthony Coleman, some of these guys who really, really knew, like Jason had studied with Jackie Bayard and people like direct lineage to the stride piano tradition. And of course, that kind of tied in with all of my obsession with New Orleans music, Jelly Roll Morton, all that stuff. So that was kind of the niche that I ended up carving out for myself while I was at NEC in Boston.
Okay.
And maybe that somehow transferred over to, you know, playing a groove in my left hand. I'm sure it did, you know?
Mm-hmm. The accuracy, though, that's what, man, like stride piano and the accuracy you have to have in that left hand seems
Yeah.
so insurmountable to me. Like to try to like do that. It's like, I mean, obviously you probably work on this stuff super slow, right? When you're
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
starting out. Yeah.
You work on it super slow. It's a muscle memory thing. And it's one of those things that you really just kind of, if you want to be really hitting on the stride stuff, you got to do it every day just to keep that thing going, keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I also at the time was like playing like a bunch of solo gigs in Boston at, you know, cocktail bars and museums and stuff like that. So I was really checking out the tradition of solo piano. And there's guys that like Larry Goldings talks about this guy a lot named Dave McKenna, a guy from actually from Boston, who's really kind of unknown, but he had this amazing way of walking bass lines in his left hand and comping and blowing and just really swinging motherfucker. So I was checking out a lot of Dave McKenna and just kind of and Dave really comes from that stride tradition too. It's like part of what I was able to do is really like dig into that old school sound, which like allowed me to not kind of freak out and try to keep up with all my peers who were just, you know, playing Coltrane and you know, beyond.
Yeah. And you were there, you said around 2013 is when
Yeah.
you went in? Okay. Yeah, I just missed you, man. I was like 2 years difference when I came back to Baltimore, but it's that whole scene up there, man. Like, how often did you go to Wally's and play?
A lot, but
Yeah, I bet.
not until later on. I mean, my first 2 or 3 years, like I said, I was just like treading water, you know.
Mhm.
And then my senior year, and I ended up living in Boston for a couple years after I graduated. That's when I really kind of blossomed and started to gig out more and play at Wally's and all that stuff.
Yeah. That city's so great, man. Like it's,
Yeah.
you know, there's just so much culture and such a diverse community. I feel like it's like most of the time in Boston, it's pretty open armed when it comes to like, you know, music and whatnot, and people going out to check out music, which I like about that city. Well,
Yeah.
that's so cool. It's so weird, man. Like to have those two connections, it's like the world is so small. It's just so small.
Dig it, bro.
Yeah. So, all right. So stride piano and then B3. So did you already have a B3 in your possession? Like at that time, like when you were in Boston, like when did you get your first B3?
Well, it's actually here at my studio in North Carolina. It's a Hammond C3.
Okay.
It's a 1957 C3 that I bought off Craigslist from a local band in the area, a jam band called the Mantras. I was just looking for one, and I came home. I think maybe might have been my sophomore year of college on a holiday break, and my dad helped me with a little bit with it, and I moved it in. And you know, so like for most of the time that I was in Boston, I didn't have access to a Hammond. I like purchased MIDI foot pedals and would practice, you know, kicking the pedals on these like MIDI pedals and using a Nord and stuff. And I started playing in church, and that's where I really got a lot of reps on an actual Hammond. So, but I'm sitting at my C3 right now, and this is I love this instrument. I love the late 50s models Hammonds. Yeah.
Did you do any like mods to it or anything? Did you have to put any work into it? I'm sure maybe over the years you have, but
Well, here's I mean, in Boston, my good friend Tyler Drabdick lives there. He works at Boss Organ is the name of his company. He's one of the best Hammond techs in the country. So I would actually go and hang out with him and, you know, just we'd, you know, drink a beer and ask him to, you know, fix something on one of my Hammonds. At some point, I will say in Boston, I did have a chop, a Hammond chop that I got from Jamie Saft. But
what's a chop? I might be thinking of a different thing. What's that? I don't know if I'm familiar.
just a Hammond that the legs are cut off.
Oh, okay. I got you. I've never heard that term. Okay. That's what I thought, but I was like, is that what that means?
Yeah, it's
okay.
in my hatchback, you know, versus with the skirt on it, or like a B3, you know, full body. You have to put it on a dolly to move it around.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tyler has sent me modifications. Like this is one of his it plugs into the preamp on the back of my Hammond. It has a reverb tank, overdrive, EQ.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, but it's fully tube.
Dude, that's
so
awesome.
That's like, you know, one of the modifications you can make, but you know, they're really don't need to be modified. I mean, the effects are built in, you know, you have vibrato, chorus, percussion, swell pedal, drawbars, preset, Leslie's.
Yeah. Dude, it's such a big instrument to be carrying around, man. It's like when you're signing up to be the organ player, you're signing up for a lot, man. Working those guns constantly. It's a heavy instrument.
Yeah, well, the situation that I got now is the place that we play at pretty regularly here in town. Just got a Hammond on the stage, you know. There's a couple clubs in Greensboro, North Carolina now that have Hammonds, because I was like, look, we're putting a Hammond in here and it's going to stay here.
Dude, there seems like there's a pretty good scene there, huh? Musically speaking.
Well, yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, Charlie Hunter moved here out of the blue. Right. So when I came home during the pandemic, I was living in New Orleans, and I moved back home with my parents. I started hanging out with Charlie, and yeah, I mean, that's about, and the scene is really just kind of blossomed around him. But there's a great scene in North Carolina in general. I mean, in the Triangle area, in Durham and Raleigh, Chapel Hill, great musicians, Charlotte and Asheville, Wilmington. But yeah, Greensboro has really kind of put itself on the map since Charlie moved here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Was Jeff Clapp already there too? I know. I think he moved out, didn't he?
Yeah, he recently moved back to Texas with his partner, but he's from here. Yep, he's absolutely from North Carolina and was living here for a while.
Okay. He's going to be on here in a little while, like I think next month or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. But dude, my first experience with that cat was, I guess, when Charlie first moved there. They were playing some corner of a bar, looked like it was in somebody's family room, and Charlie must have like lived Instagrammed it. Yeah, and, I mean, I've been a fan of Charlie since, I mean, I'm 42. I started listening to him when I was probably 19, something like that. So I've always been a fan. But when I saw Jeff, I was like, who the hell is this drummer?
Yeah.
Man, his touch, his feel, his groove. And then when I saw you guys were putting a record out, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is going to be tight. But like, how did you start hanging out with Charlie? Like, was he just like out in the scene and he was at a gig and you guys talked?
No, man, it was quarantine. Like, there was nothing going on. So he, and I have a kind of a studio space here. So he started coming over almost daily, and he was really into playing drums at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was we were like quarantine buddies, and we would come over here and shed, and I would play Hammond, and he would practice his shuffle grooves on the drums. And we just really, that's how we kind of connected and hit it off. And then eventually, you know, when we started making the record, he started switching to guitar, got really into playing 6-string because that's something he'd never really done before. I mean, you know, of course he'd done it, but he got into, you know, playing all the Wes Montgomery, Grant Green, George Benson, all that kind of stuff. So it was just like, whoa, this is fucking awesome. So we just, you know, with Charlie, you ride the train for as long as he's going, and then he's on to the next thing, you know?
Right.
So
That's what I
but
love about him.
yeah.
Honestly, like if all the artists that I'm really into, like Charlie or Wayne Krantz or whoever, like they're all fearless. I talk about this all the time on my show. It's like
Yeah.
Charlie reinvents himself every time he puts a record out or every time he steps into a musical situation, and that's admirable, man. Because
Oh
he could phone it in, and people would still be coming out to see him play seven, you
no,
know. And
that's not his MO, man. He doesn't phone anything in.
no, never. That's why I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. He
So when you guys, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's inspiring for sure.
Hell yeah, dude. So did he bring in Jeff, or did you know Jeff?
Yeah. Me and Jeff played a couple gigs. But Jeff was in transition, like I said, moving to Texas, so it wasn't like we had really hung out or played that much together at all. So Charlie produced the record, and he was like, "Let's get Jeff in, let's do it here." Blah blah, helping me pick the tunes. Let's do this arrangements, and so my first real time playing with Jeff was in the studio,
Wow.
and it was amazing, man. We really kind of hit gold. And yeah, Jeff is incredibly gifted technician on the drums.
Yeah.
His time and his brushes and all of his shit is really impressive.
Yeah. He's an inspiration too to watch play that kid, man. I mean, that all the tunes that you guys did, even the way that it's recorded. And I think I heard you say something about how, didn't you guys just do a couple takes of each tune?
Oh yeah. That's,
Like
I mean,
you didn't labor over it. It was like, let's just do this live kind of thing.
100%. And it was like, it was really like a day and a half, and the record was done because we recorded it to 2-track. So it was being mixed as we played, basically, into like a Neve console. And that's kind of the way Charlie works in the studio, man. After 2, maybe 3 takes, where you're on to the next song, or maybe you'll come back to it, but that's it. If the magic's not there in the first 2 takes, and we just, were really locked in, and everything came out so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super fun to listen to those records, dude. It's
Thank you.
I put those on while I'm working just to like in the morning to get me going, and they're killing, dude. It sounds so great.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, dude. Did you enjoy doing the record that way, or was that new for you? Like to just be like, all right, let's do this and see what happens.
I loved it. I mean, that's usually how I make records or track in general. I mean, it's usually I do 3 takes of something, and the 3rd take is usually the one that we keep and just kind of tweak it up a little bit. That's my style. That's kind of, I'm definitely not a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to recording, because I feel like what you're really trying to capture is a feeling. More so than nailing all the parts.
Right. Do you have some stuff in the works now? Are you already working on the next thing?
Yeah, I'm working on volume 3. I mean, I'm working so many things of kind of different organ projects, different stuff. So I'm pushing for another release next year for sure.
Nice, dude. That's awesome. I cannot wait to hear it. All right. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about being an amateur keyboard player is understanding, like, so you play a bunch of different styles. So we're talking like, all right, so stride, talking about B3, we're talking about like gospel, funk, soul music. Like, how do you prepare yourself from song to song? I know this sounds, it's like a weird question, but how do you get in the mindset for each of these different genres when you're playing? Because when you're switching between playing stride and then playing, some funky clavinet thing or some, Rhodes, tune, then playing B3, like, do you have to like mindfully get in that headspace? Because the technique's different, right?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Like tonight I'm playing a solo piano gig, which will probably be all stride, actually my dad and my brother will come sit with me on horns.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, I'd say like really when I'm playing piano, that's its own thing, and then when I'm playing Hammond, that's its own thing, and then and I don't really have to think about it after that, beyond that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It gets a little bit trickier when I play with like artists. Like I'm in a band called His Golden Messenger, and we, so I have a larger keyboard rig. I have a couple keyboards. I have a Hammond, Wurlitzer, Rhodes, clavinet. So that becomes more about playing the sound. Maybe I'll play the clavinet on the chorus and the Wurlitzer on the verses and organ on the outro, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of digging into the different sounds. But when I'm playing Hammond in the organ trio, becomes that's what it is. It's just the Hammond. It's me, a Hammond, a drummer, and a guitar player or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's mostly just the Hammond and the drums that's important. And so I have to adapt whatever genre, whatever song it is, and make it feel good on the Hammond. So that's really all I'm concerned with. Not necessarily what style it's in, or just making it feel right for that setting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I feel like I've noticed, that what I really like about your musicality is it seems like you're in it to win it for whatever it is that you're doing at that moment.
Yeah.
What was the name of that band again? It was Our Golden Messenger.
His Golden Messenger.
His Golden Messenger. Was that the clip you put on Instagram the other day? It was like yesterday. That band sounds great, dude.
Thanks, man.
Oh man, that's a big band too. It's like how many people are in that group?
It's actually just a 5-piece, but we had an extra horn player and vocalist for we were on CBS in the morning.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That band sounds great. That's what I was thinking about. Because anytime I see so I grew up listening to John Medeski, Martin and Wood, and seeing him play all these different things, and like, how do you, like, if you're playing B3 and you're playing clav, like, you got to be thinking differently, because like you're talking about, well, I guess they're both percussive instruments, right? Essentially.
It's like playing the drums, man, because it's not just your hands, it's your feet too. I mean, when you're playing the clav, you usually have a wah-wah going for a lot of that stuff, and then when you're playing the Hammond, there's a million things going on, swell pedals, and so it's playing drums is a really good analogy for playing keyboards.
Yeah, man. Did you, as far as like, when I was talking about demystifying the B3 a little bit, like I talked to Eric Finland when he was on this show a little bit. We talked a little bit about like Al Green stuff, like B3 stuff that's on Al Green tunes, and like capturing those sounds, and different B3 players, and how it's, there's so much to do with the drawbars and like the Leslie and like the presets and all of that. Like, it seems like to me that if I wanted to sit down and learn how to do it, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, where do you start? Where does a young player start if they want to learn how to play B3?
There's some really basic, actually drawbar settings that will get you pretty far. There's the Jimmy Smith drawbar setting on the top manual that I use a lot of the time, which is just your first 3 drawbars pulled all the way out, percussion on, vibrato on, and that's really the sound. And then for your left-hand bass, for the most classic bass sound, it's the same thing, but the second drawbar is pushed all the way back, so it's just the 8 and the 16-inch. And that preset, if you know how to get your drawbars set up and press the right preset button, will really take you pretty far.
Is your organ on right now?
No, but I can turn it on.
Turn it on. Tell me a little bit. It's like, show me a little bit of that stuff, because I find it super interesting in terms of like the overtones and everything. How the B3 replicates those overtones with the drawbars. Like, I never really knew about that stuff until a few years ago.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm turning it on by pressing down the start button. Then I'll switch the run button on, but the start button is turning on the tone wheel generator. There's a tone wheel in the back of the organ that has 100 spinning discs in it, which creates your tones. Yeah,
Crazy.
it's fun. So that's so now it's on, and actually, my buddy Will Blades has been doing some really great Hammond tutorials on Instagram that are worth checking out if you want to get see. He's fantastic. But anyways, that's the Jimmy Smith setting right there on the top manual. I don't know how much you can see here. But these are your presets over here, the black keys.
Yeah.
Here's your vibrato. So this is the drawbar manual that I'm using right here, the second drawbar. So you can see 3 drawbars pulled out. Then these are my bass drawbars. Can you see this? I don't know if I'm doing it. It's kind of
I can. That's the thing I always wondered, Sam. Like, so there's so many drawbars up there. How do you know which ones go to which sections of the manuals?
There's 2 sets for each manual. So the left set is your B flat preset, and your right set is your B natural preset.
Okay.
So you can set your drawbars. You have two drawbars that you can set manually, and then switch back and forth preset wise. Then there's more presets that you can't adjust. Well, you can adjust from the back, but you're not adjusting on the fly. So that's the same for both manuals.
Right. Okay. That always confused me because it's like a whole row of them across the top, and you're just like, what the heck? What do these control?
They're organized. They're organized in 2 different sets for each manual. In the middle, there's your bass pedal drawbars.
Okay. All right. Sweet. So thanks for just demystifying that. But let's talk a little bit about different. I mean, I grew up. My first exposure probably to like B3 music was probably Root Down. Like I was listening to that. I was listening to that Grant Green album Alive, and then that was one of my favorite records, like back in like early college and stuff. And then my drummer, who was like introducing me to all this stuff, he's like, "You got to go get Root Down if you want to hear some cool B3 music." Yeah. So that was like that sound is as soon as you played it, I was like, "Yep, that's that sound." So like, do you feel like are you trying to find, or is there a way on the B3 to have a fingerprint, like a musical fingerprint, just like a guitar player has a vibrato fingerprint? You know what I mean? That's who was the B3 player on the on the Love and Happiness. Who played on that? The Al Green stuff.
I don't think it was one of the Hodges brothers. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I forget his name right now. My friend George, my good buddy just moved to town, who's a drummer from Memphis, George Slepik, he would know. But that sound is, I know the sound, which is just, that's the sound, which is just your 16-inch, drawbar pulled out on a Leslie on Corral. Oh, sorry, wrong preset. I love that sound. I mean, there's always a way to put your imprint on something. I think it just is like, it's more about how you choose to use these sounds and the choices you make and when you make those choices and what you choose to say with the sounds,
Right.
And there's little, nuances like that, like not having the vibrato on or not having the percussion on make a big difference, or just pushing the, drawbars in slightly so they're not pulled out all the way. There's all different types of ways to kind of manipulate those sounds. I mean, when I hear it, I don't initially think like, oh, that's Jimmy Smith's sound. I just think that's a sound that I go to when I want to, play percussively and funky,
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So B3 aside, so when we're talking So when you're playing with Charlie most of the time, you're playing all B3, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not doing any Rhodes or anything. Okay. All right, that's what I thought. But like for your purposes for like the B3 and what you're trying to, because I think it's cool that there are younger players like you that are crushing it and like, because I mean the B3, I don't think it's a dying art,
Yeah.
but you don't see as many people. And maybe that's a logistic thing. You don't see as many people playing an actual B3 these days. Well, the Nord does a great job of replicating it, but there's
Yeah. I
nothing
mean,
like the real thing.
there's nothing like the real thing. I think you really have to love it. I mean, for me, it's just I love this instrument so much. I'm obsessed with it. You know, I love the tubes and the hit and the way it works. And I have buddies, you know, we text each other pictures of Hammonds and try to figure out what year it is. And it's just such a cool piece. It's really like a timepiece of American history because they're all made in America, and they're just as, if not more complicated than a grandfather clock. And the actual electronics of it are not rocket science. You know, it's very kind of, you know, it's like really the first synthesizer in a way. You know, it's like they're basically sine waves, and they're being created in this, or you know, this a way that doesn't involve a chipboard. You know, there's no electronics in this. Besides, there's one cable that I plug into the wall, and the rest of it is powered by a tube preamp, and all of this amazing stuff is coming out. It's super cool.
I know, dude. I know. It's so magical. The last thing I wanted to ask you was about just like the gospel harmony that you have in you, because
Yeah.
I love, like I was saying, I love gospel piano. I love listening to people play B3, and I could go to a church and just listen to a dude play B3 for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
But like, where does that stuff come from for you? Like, where did your knowledge of harmony for gospel music come from? Was it from playing in that church, or was it from listening to records and shedding on that stuff? Because the kind of like the way that I listen to gospel music and the way that I think about harmony for gospel music is it's all about what's going on underneath the bass note and how that changes the quality of the chord. So like, how do you approach it? I'm so curious because you play the hell out of it.
Oh, thank you. Man, it took a long time. I didn't grow up in the church, and Hammond players in the church are virtuosic. They're incredible. And they speak their own language. They really do in terms of harmony and everything. And it was just reps, man. Experience, playing in the church, just falling on my face over and over until, you know, I was comfortable enough to back up a preacher who could slide in and out of hymns and you know, do some whooping at the end of his sermon and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I learned a lot of it from YouTube, and I learned a lot of it from taking videos of guys playing on my phone and trying to figure it out, you know. And I've really transitioned since I put my record out to playing more of the funk style of Hammond, the jazz style of Hammond, and you know, at throwing in my elements of gospel and as a more of like a spice, you know. I don't really have time at the moment to be playing every Sunday, but when I'm in town, it's been amazing working for churches because the communities have been incredible, and they've really supported me, you know, since I graduated college. It's been a great you know, resource and way to make a living, really.
Yeah, dude. I know plenty of cats who are working in churches week to week, you know. Did you as far as like gospel piano when you're or B3, did Corey Henry play a part in all? Have you like studying that cat or?
Yeah, man. Corey Henry is the GOAT, man. He's like my Louis Armstrong of the Hammond, you know. If you're gonna play gospel music, you know, you have to. Corey's language is for me where it's at. But you know, there's so many cats. I mean, a lot of those cats that he grew up around too. Travis Sales and you know, there's a really rich scene of Hammond players in New England, I will say.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean Kevin Powell, all the Powell family lives up in Connecticut, and of course New York, Brooklyn, all is incredible. And then in Boston, there's a handful of Hammond players who are really great, and I would take lessons from a lot of those guys too.
Right.
Yeah. And the net, like you said, it's like the world, the network of Hammond players becomes smaller and smaller because we all kind of start to know each other. You know, the cats out in Los Angeles or on the East Coast or in Chicago or whatever. You know, we all kind of keep in touch and see and check each other out and stuff.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's keep posting all the little tidbits that you post on Instagram because it's so fun, dude. I even like with the guitar in my hand, sometimes when you post stuff, I'm like, what's he doing with his left hand? And like, what's the harmony up top? And I try to cop like what you're doing. I had a conversation with Joey Landreth as a friend, and he's done my show a couple times. And
sick.
Yeah, and he's told me so many times, like, dude, I'm telling you what you have to do. So you got to put Corey's records on, and you got to sit with your guitar, and you got to figure out all the voice leading stuff that he's doing.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on, like in terms of, because what is like, you know, so we went to music school. You can learn a lot at music school. Some people think you don't need to go to music school. For me, it was super helpful.
Yeah.
For cats like that who grow up playing in a church, and like you say, it's a whole language their own. Like in terms of like, if you're a B3 gospel player and you grow up playing in church and you don't go take lessons with people or study music intently and learn notation and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm so curious how those cats think about what they're doing. And so I'm gathering a lot of those people don't even think about it. It's just like in their DNA now. Sure. But like, do you what are your thoughts on that? Like, what's the difference in those worlds?
I mean, I will say that most of my progress as a church organist has come from watching and absorbing just body language, what cats are doing with the pedals, you know, the way they're interacting with the band, the way they're interacting with the choir or the preacher. All that stuff is just from visually, I think. So maybe that says something, you know.
Do you learn that way most of the time? It's visual learning is the way you grab things?
I think I am primarily a visual learner, but obviously auditory learning is a huge part of what I do too. And a lot of times visual is not an option, but right. It is definitely quicker for me to absorb visually, I find.
Yeah, dude. All right. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about. So when you're on a gig with Charlie, whoever you guys are, who's playing drums now on those gigs?
Now since Jeff has moved away, is an old buddy of mine actually from like before middle school. So cool. He's a friend named Chuck Pinkney, and he is a young cat, and I've just been lighting a fire under his ass, and he's been sounding amazing.
Nice.
And it's really great because he was just like working in you know, retail and stuff like that, and I was, you know, and he was basically like just kind of going along, and I was like, come on, man, let's do this. I need you, you know. So awesome. I'm hoping to take him on the road and give him some experience, and he'll definitely be a guy to look out for. But luckily, having Charlie in my court, there's been opportunities to work with a lot of really great drummers. Yeah, we've been hanging out a lot with the Butcher Brown guys in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh man, those guys are ridiculous. Yeah. Did you, when you were on the stand like with Charlie, do you guys kind of give each other space to improvise as long as you want, or do you guys have like a set thing where like, all right, like if you're gonna blow, if it's not going anywhere, I'll bring you back kind of thing, or do you guys? Is it like freedom?
Hopefully, it's always going somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, it's we definitely give each other a lot of room to play. But I will say that Charlie is not a jammer. You know, that's not anywhere close to really what he's into. And when I say that, I mean more of the Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead
Right.
sort of style of stretching out over a one. You know, yeah, you know what I mean. You know,
Yeah, over
there's
like a one core vamp.
I mean, we do a lot of one chord vamps, but there's always a certain intensity and maybe even some sort of like underlying like harmonic thing that's happening in the lines, or you know, it just comes a lot more from that Grant Green, Eddie Harris style
Baby.
playing, you know, 1 to 4 chords. You know, the Grateful Dead 1 to 4 thing is really something different.
Totally.
But we're still we're improvising fully and jamming just in that zone. So there's usually, it's a lot of, you know, ups. You know, you build a solo all to its peak and break it back down. Somebody else takes a solo, you know.
Yeah. Are you guys gonna make it up to Baltimore, you think, with that group?
Yeah, man, I definitely. I just signed to a new agency in Raleigh, so I'm really hoping that there'll be some more kind of, my agent's gonna help me kind of string together some tours up that way.
Dude.
Yeah.
Awesome. I cannot wait. All right, man. Well, you want to do the lightning round get down with me?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put on a metronome for a little suspense.
Let's
We
go.
like some suspense. So what I'm going to do, Sam, is I'm going to ask you
85, 90.
close to 110.
Oh, shit. Not that close.
Not that close, but kind of close. That's my BPM, man. 85. I sit on an 85 all day long, man. Every time I write something and we go into the studio, my band will be like, this is probably 85 BPM, right? Like every single time. All right. So I'm going to ask you,
I'm thinking I'm already going faster. It sounds slow to me right now.
It does. Totally does. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. If you want, you can explain your answer each question. You don't have to. You can let it just go. But if you'd like, I love hearing explanations. That's totally fine. And the first question is always the same.
Okay.
Lennon or McCartney?
McCartney.
Okay. Worley or Rhodes?
Worley. Right now.
Clue?
Right now. 30 minutes.
Wrong. I love a good Worley, man. Clue or Monopoly?
Monopoly.
Raindrops on Roses or Whiskers on Kittens?
Raindrops on Roses.
Ben Stiller or Owen Wilson?
Ben Stiller.
Speaking of Ben Stiller, laser tag or dodgeball?
Ooh, dodgeball.
All right. Snickers or Twix?
Oh, that's a good one. Twix.
Yeah, my man.
I love Twix.
Me too, buddy. Jimmy Smith or Booker T?
Oh, shit. Man, I'm going to go with Booker T right now.
All right. All right. And now, if you had this ability, one of these two abilities, which would you rather have? The ability to speak to animals or speak every language on the planet?
Every language.
All right.
I've been trying to get my language chops up. I'm on Duolingo every day.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. Your work ethic seems like it's out of this world.
Oh, man. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Last question. Sometimes this is the easiest. Sometimes this is the hardest, Sam.
Okay.
If you could take one album, and this does not have to be your favorite album of all time or anything like that, but if you could take one album and erase it from your memory, so like it never existed, just so you could go back and listen to it for the first time again and experience it, what album would that be?
Now I'm getting the metronome is tripping me out.
Here, I'll turn it off. Turn it off.
I know it's like an episode of Twilight Zone or something.
Yeah.
Man. That's a great question. I think the band,
Really? Okay. Why?
or that, or music from Big Pink.
Okay.
Because or maybe Revolver. I don't know. Uh, I'll go with my first answer.
Okay.
That music is just it was so amazing and important to me.
Did your folks raise you on that?
No, not really. I mean, they're in some ways for sure. My mom was definitely a huge fan of the band, but I really got into them in college. They were kind of my escape from all the heady stuff that was happening at the conservatory. I just wore that shit out, and at this point in my life, I'm kind of like not as obsessed with it as I was. And I feel like if I could erase it and hear it again for the first time, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be awesome.
So you got some hippie in you. There's some of that in you.
Yeah, I'm definitely,
Are you more of a Little Feat guy or more of the band?
I love them both.
Yeah.
Lowell George, man, Little Feat is
dude.
great, but I'm more of a band guy. I mean, because of all the pieces, between Levon and Richard and Garth, Rick, Robbie. It's a hell of a lineup.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
I remember I love Little Feat, but I remember when I first somebody was playing Little Feat, I was like, what is this fake New Orleans bullshit,
Yeah. I thought the same thing too until I heard Two Trains.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, all of it. I would never say that now. It was just a punk ass kid, but I don't know. Maybe there's a little truth to it, but I'm a big fan of Little Feat. Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead.
Yeah, I didn't even know that they were there. Like they were in DC for a while. I didn't even know that until recently. Little Feat was in the DC area for a while.
Interesting.
It's weird because I've been here my whole damn life.
Yeah,
and Joey told me about it because Joey's a huge Little Feat fan.
Right.
And I was like, zero clue.
And I can't wait to play and hang out with Joey. We've been kind of following each other since I started working with Charlie, so looking forward to that.
He's the best.
Are you into jazz and bebop and stuff?
Yeah, although I've never gotten to the point where I've really kind of shed on bebop. But I'm a huge fan. Yeah, but I'm a songwriter. So
oh, cool.
My thing is I'm a blues, but I'm a huge Wayne Krantz head. So I was in a jazz fusion trio where we did a bunch of we played Black Market, we played some Krantz stuff, we played Schofield stuff. I can do that thing, but when it comes to bebop, someone's like, "Here's a chart, we're gonna play this bebop tune." This is the BPM. I'm like, "Nope, take my guitar."
Have you heard Ray Charles record, The Genius After Hours?
No, and I'm a huge Ray Charles fan. I've never listened to that record.
Check that record out. It's incredible. It'll blow your mind. It's an instrumental record, and will put Ray in a new light for you.
Okay. Yeah, I love that cat, man. I always talk about, because I'm a singer too, but I always talk about if I could, emulate one singer in history and I could sound like it would be Ray Charles, 100%.
I'm pretty much with you, man. I mean, he's good as it gets.
Yeah, man. Well, Sam, dude, thank you so much for hanging out, man. This has been fun. And I had way more on my list, and I was like, damn it, can't ask that. But
yeah, my pleasure.
But if you come to Baltimore, we'll do it there. I'll ask you there.
Sounds great. 1 sec.
Yeah, man.
These just came in the mail.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
The vinyl prints, the vinyl record. So I'm really, really stoked about this, man.
Dude, that's awesome. I was going to ask you, tell people where they can get your new record and everything.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Jump the gun. But we've waited for 8 months for these. I mean, I have 250 pre-orders. And I'm just so excited to get these out to all the people. And I'm so thank you for everyone who's supported me and been patient through this process. And they're finally here. I don't know if you know, but there's been like a national shortage on vinyl supplies. One of the main plants, like, caught on fire, I guess, or something last year.
I saw that.
So yeah, but they're here, and they're going to be getting shipped out very soon. And if you would like to get one, it's just go to my website, Sam Fribush, like Friday Bush, FRIBUSH.com.
Nice, dude. Yeah, everybody, if you haven't listened to the first 2 volumes of that record, folks, it's on Spotify too, but like support Sam and buy it if you can get it on vinyl and you like spinning vinyl. That's the way to listen to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, that's great. And then tour dates and everything are up there too?
Yep. Website's got it all, tour dates and the vinyls, and yeah, keep streaming on Spotify if you don't have a vinyl record player, and definitely hoping to be coming to a city near you very soon.
Awesome, dude. Well, dude, Sam, thanks again, man. Have a great gig tonight.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. See you next time.
Peace.